Hello everyone, Oliver G here from the Earful Tower podcast, and this episode I've brought it out from the archives. I've taken it from the dusty archives because I saw some value in it. I wanted to reshare it much like an antique, and the reason is because it's a chat with Christophe Lucien, the auctioneer, who every year does what he calls a Paris Mon Amour auction with all these fascinating, beautiful, sometimes ancient antique trinkets and paintings and pieces of furniture that he sells. Now, when I interviewed him a few years ago, we talked about antiques in France, we talked about what people can invest in, we talked about his own annual sale. But the reason I wanted to bring it out again for today's episode is because this very week, on Monday and Tuesday specifically, is the 14th edition of the Paris Mon Amour auction. And if you're quick, you can bid on some fantastic items. Now, when I say I love this, I love it because it's like this ephemeral museum. You can go and visit. You can visit on Monday and Tuesday as well. You can see all these objects, but then you know they're going to sell. So there's something exciting and scary about it. I've even bid on something in the past, didn't win, but this year's is a really good one. I can encourage everyone to check through it. I asked Christophe, incidentally, who's become something of a friend. We've done a few things together over the years. I asked him, as I always do, what he considered to be his favorite piece this year and also what the vibe is. And I'll just give you a taste of what he said before we get into the episode. He said that this exceptional 2-day event this year is dedicated to the ghosts of Paris. Numerous pieces of furniture and objects thought to have disappeared have been unearthed from cellars and attics for the occasion. Paintings, drawings, engravings, and more, including his favorite piece, which is 12 bronze and crystal chandeliers from the Grand Hôtel du Palais d'Orsay. I'll get back to this in a second. There's also Art Nouveau mosaics, there's ornaments from the 1920s, loads of antique pieces and furniture from the Eiffel Tower. They're great for any... It sounds like I'm doing a huge ad for them. This is just something that I truly love that I think you guys will like. This isn't an ad at all. There's also an incredible collection of canes, including a rare flag cane from a supporter of the 1924 Paris Olympics. In fact, there's loads more. There's even an Hector Guimard chair, like a park bench, which they're putting their estimated quote at 1,500 euros. I'll eat my own hat. I'll go and eat a park bench if it's that cheap when it finally sells. But I also asked Christophe for his favorite piece. This is exactly what he said. The chandeliers. This is what he sent me as a message today. The chandeliers in the Grand Hôtel of the Palais d'Orsay are, for me, an extraordinary discovery. We didn't know they still existed. They were acquired in 1972 at an on-site auction of the hotel's furnishings at a time when no one was interested in the derelict Gare d'Orsay. Now, in case you don't know, I'll just take a brief pause. The Musée d'Orsay, the famous museum on the left bank, there used to be a train station, okay? So he says no one was interested in it after it became derelict. The buyer left them in a hangar from which they never emerged, giving the impression that they had disappeared. The son of the late owner was informed of the existence of our specialized sales and had the idea of exhuming them. Imagine the emotion of the auctioneer, always on the lookout for unusual objects, especially when they reappeared like ghosts. Today, these chandeliers carry the soul of one of the world's richest museums, which took possession of the station and is now a listed monument. They're sure to attract the attention of many a connoisseur, as the vision of heritage preservation has completely changed. He's quite a poet indeed, Christophe Lucien, and I hope you agree after hearing us chat today. I'm just looking at the chandelier now, 25,000 euros, I assume, per piece. They do look very fascinating. As for the chat, this was recorded a couple of years ago in a cafe on Rue Saint-Antoine in the Marais. There's the background noise of the cafe, and just a reminder, the first couple minutes aren't indicative of the rest of the episode because there was an awful lot happening at the start, but I wanted to keep to the start of the conversation. So hopefully you'll feel like you're in the cafe with us. A huge thanks to the Patreon supporters who make this show exist. I'm going to reshare the Patreon members video that I did with Christophe walking around a previous collection for the Paris Mon Amour. Otherwise, in the show notes are all the links so you can bid on some items. And even if you don't bid, it's worth it just to have a look. It really is like a museum. Thanks for listening to the Earful Tower, and let's get into the episode. Christophe, welcome to La Favorite Café.
Thank you.
This is your regular spot, or
no? One of them.
Okay.
One of them.
And how did you choose it? What makes this a good cafe?
Well, I like the atmosphere. People are kind.
Yeah.
It's a bit noisy, but people are very kind.
I think
and you can meet other people very easily here.
Right. What do you mean? People just talk to each other in the cafe?
Mostly at the terrace.
Yeah.
They talk to each other.
Yeah.
Even if you don't know them.
Is this the kind of place that's really expensive for drinks as well?
No.
Because we're on Rue Rivoli, right?
Yes.
Isn't that
it's
one
not
of
very
No.
expensive.
Okay.
It's very normal.
Okay.
It's very classical.
So let's talk a little bit about antiques.
Yes.
So when you and I met, you were in the middle of a big auction of it was Paris sort of memorabilia or paraphernalia. And how did that auction go?
Very well. We made 50 world records.
50 world records?
Yes.
What did you make? Like what?
Because the prices we obtained have never been obtained in the world. I think that because of the crowd we had at the exhibits and the advertisements we had on that sale. Thanks to journalists like you.
Thanks to me coming in and filming with you on that day.
Yes, many people bid all over the planet.
Right,
yes.
right.
But mostly Parisians. About 80% of the bidders were Parisians.
Interesting.
And it's very new for me, because when I started those sales, most of the clients were foreigners.
Right.
And Parisian people were a bit didn't take care of this type of sales. But now, because of the way we make a lot of noise about those sales, they understand that the heritage is very important, and they come in mass. They come in very big numbers, and it's a pride for me. A very big pride.
So when did you start doing this?
10 years ago.
So 10 years ago, Parisians weren't so interested, and now it's turned around.
Yes.
Okay.
I think because of destructions in Paris, because of small catastrophes. The mayor of Paris doesn't take care a lot of heritage.
Anne Hidalgo, you mean?
Yes.
She doesn't care about heritage.
No, not at all. Not a lot. She destroys a lot of very beautiful buildings in the east of Paris, in popular boroughs,
Really?
in the east.
Like
yes.
where? What do you mean the east? You mean like the...
In 19th, 18th, 12th, 13th boroughs, districts. Yeah. And many Parisians do not like that at all,
What do you think?
I am among them.
Yeah.
I'm very bitter,
Yeah.
You say.
Yeah, sure.
And I'm like them. I understand more and more how important the architecture, the urbanism of the city is important to us. This is where we live. This is the place where we live. So destroy things to replace them by awful concrete buildings is a nonsense. When modern buildings are pretty and creative, it's okay. While they are very banal, it's just a shame for me and to all those Parisians who take care of their heritage now.
Do you think you are a fan of yesterday a lot more of tomorrow?
Oh no, not at all. I'm a fan of modern architecture. I can tell you a lot about that.
Yeah.
I'm fond of architecture, but not business architecture.
Sure.
I don't care of business of offices building. Banal offices building you can find everywhere, all over the planet. You have the same in Australia, in England. I don't want Paris to become like London. The River Thames is totally destroyed. From Westminster to Greenwich, everything has been destroyed and replaced by very banal buildings. There is not any. You can't see any creation on the Thames River. And I don't want Paris to become like that.
Do you think it is becoming more like London?
No, the luck of Paris is that it's classified at the World Heritage List, by the UNESCO.
Yeah.
But
the whole city is?
No, a part of the city, the center of the city on the Seine River, but the extremities are not.
Right.
So the mayor can do anything he wants on this perimeter.
A lot of people who come on this show say that they're a fan of the work that Anne Hidalgo does in turning car lanes into bicycle lanes and that kind of stuff.
Yes, but it's a detail for me. Every mayor in the world do that. In big cities, even in New York now, you have a bicycle lanes.
Yeah, sure.
It's very classical of today. But the rest is 90% of the work of the job of a mayor is to take attention to the people living in the city, but not only because of pollution, And when you building in concrete, you pollute, because concrete takes the hotness of the weather during the day and put it back by night, and it's very dangerous for the planet, So it's very paradoxical,
Sure.
It's very nice to have bicycle. I ride bicycles, and I take the metro mostly, but I'm attached to my city. I attached to what it is, and I'm attached to the way Paris is created. We have talked about that. A very bad design of a litter bin, of a bench, of a street lamp is for me something that is scandalous in Paris, because Paris has invented urban furniture. So today, put a street lamp like a street lamp you can find in Tokyo or in Shanghai. For me, it's not interesting.
Right. I remember when we met. And I'm glad that coffee machine has stopped in the background. I remember when we met and filmed the video in the auction house, you were a big fan of the Paris street lights.
Yes.
And the bits, the surrounding underneath the trees and the city.
Yes.
Yeah.
The bottoms, yes.
And do you find that you're still a fan of those things in Paris as you walk around today in general?
Oh, yes, of course.
Yeah.
I'm fond of the decor of the streets. It's like when I walk in Paris, it's like in a decor of a movie,
Right.
a play, a theater play,
So tell me, we're going to talk about antiques, and
Yes.
I'm very conscious that they turned the music off for us to have this interview, so it would be a crime if we didn't talk about antiques before they... Is that it coming back on? Oh no, that's an ambulance. Okay, so it's great because the listeners will feel they're in Paris right with us now. But let's talk about people who shopping for antique things. A lot of people listening are maybe Americans or Australians, British people, afraid of the French language that, you're doing the process in French. The whole process maybe frightens them.
Yes.
What are your tips to foreigners for getting into the antique world?
Well, Paris is an international city, so we do speak several languages in auction rooms in Paris.
Right. You speak a few languages, don't you?
Yes.
What do you speak? German as well, was it?
Yes, and Italian too.
Right.
Every sales are not translated in English.
Merci.
But when you bid in prestigious sales, you can see the translation of numbers of prices on a panel behind the auctioneer. So it's very convenient. And when you bid from your computer, you understand very well what happens.
It's pretty straightforward.
And it's translated in dollars,
Right.
in pounds.
So maybe it's not so
yens.
difficult at all.
No, not at all.
But just a brief aside, a waiter has come and brought us empty cups with jugs filled with
hot chocolate.
This looks like quite thick hot chocolate, not the kind of, not so milky, more chocolate.
Yes, there is more chocolate than milk.
Yeah. Healthy?
I don't think it is that.
So let's walk through exactly where to start. What are the items that people, are popular among antique shoppers? What are the things that people typically buy?
Well, the market is changing. It's very hard to answer to your question because the market changes very, very quickly every day, every month, every year, every 10 years. So people who buy at auctions today in Paris are not the same people that bought in the same sales 20 years ago, 10 years ago. For example, average furniture is not in fashion anymore. Average antique furniture is not in fashion anymore. But most of bidders in Paris buy things from the 30s, creation of the 30s, mostly French 30s creations.
So what does that include?
It includes objects of art like jewelry, like armchair, chairs, sofas, tables, and lamps, and they love it. They love that. But I think I do not think. I'm sure that it's the same all over the planet. In New York, they are completely fond of French furniture of the 30s. In London too, I think in Australia, rich people in Sydney too, and that's what is mostly in fashion.
Why the 30s? What's wrong with the 20s?
Because our epoch is very paradoxal. Like we are talking about the politics of the mayor of Paris, but which is paradoxal. But what is paradoxal in our epoch is that a part of the population likes to have a lot of things at home, many things at home. They are afraid of emptiness. But another part of the population, which is a minority, likes, on the contrary, things that are completely empty. They are completely
like minimalism.
Yeah, minimalist. I'm sorry.
No, it's hard to say in any language.
Yes, and they like white walls, few pieces of furniture, and minimalist pieces of furniture. And the 30s, the French 30s, have brought that to the decorative arts.
Right.
So they're a part of the population buys that, and young people, rich people of around 30 years old, they buy things from the 40s, 60s, 70s, 80s, and they start to buy things from the 90s.
Already?
Yes, already. Yes.
That makes even me feel old.
Yes, right. Things go very quickly.
Wow. Okay, we got a question from a listener called Peter. He wanted to ask you, what should I buy today to invest in that will be an antique of the future?
It's very hard.
It's a €1 million question.
It's very hard to answer to this question because I could make a very wrong answer, and I wouldn't like to have.
But no one will know for 30 years. It's okay.
To have problems with him in 20 years. What I advise to people is to buy what they like, mostly to buy what they like, and in the specialty they like, to buy the most quality things, not to buy average things. It's better to put a big amount of money in quality things than in many things for small amount of money to each of them.
So spend good money on good quality.
On good quality items, yes. And you never have bad surprises.
Right.
Years after, people who buy average things have always bad surprises because people don't care about what they like 10 years after, 20 years after.
But what about whereabouts? Where in France and Paris are good places to find good antiques?
But there are several boroughs full of antique dealers. You probably know them.
Absolutely,
Yes.
I know there's in the ninth where you're
In the ninth, where around Drouot, around the main auction house, you know that Drouot is the biggest auction house in the world for the number of items sold every year.
As in the place where we film.
Yes, yes, it's the biggest in the world. There are 16 rooms selling every day at the same time. So there is no equivalent in the world. And there are some antiques dealers around too. And in Paris, where you can buy very, very wonderful antiques, is in the 6th district, around the Rue de Seine, the Rue Jacob, the Rue de Verneuil, and Rue de Beaune.
And these are the antique shops. These aren't the markets on the street.
There are antique shops, but for very good antiques, very expensive. And also, there are several streets in the 8th district,
right,
around the Élysée Palace, the Bristol Hotel, and you can find galleries also in the 9th. In the 9th, far from Drouot, there are many antique dealers, galleries, contemporary art. And if you want to go to flea market, the biggest in the world is also in Paris.
Is it the Saint-Ouen?
Yes, Saint-Ouen is the
That's
biggest
the biggest
in the
flea
world.
market in the
It's the
world.
biggest in the world. There is no equivalent to.
Really?
And it's an extraordinary area. You know it.
Yeah.
So it's an extraordinary area because there is an amount of things that you can't compare to anything. So it's very good to walk and to take your time in Saint-Ouen. Prices are quite high, but you can talk with the antique dealers.
Well, that's something I want to talk to you about. Do you feel like the antique dealers maybe would give better prices to the local people? Do you think when they hear a foreign accent, they might think, "Oh, I can make a few extra euros"?
You can have an accent of another region of France.
Oh yeah, is that?
No, maybe, I don't know. I can't answer to you because I'm not an antique dealer. Maybe.
Where do you go to get your antiques that you have?
Auctions, only to auctions.
What's the difference? Why?
Prices are lower all the time. Because a lot of antique dealers buy by auction and they sell them to the people after, and they have to make money on them. It's normal, but it's my job, so I know how it works. So I know.
Can you tell me about the feeling when we last met and we recorded the video, and we discovered that you and I are similar? We both really like Paris, and we both really like a lot of the items that you were selling. And I said to you, which item would you like to have in your own collection? And you said, Oliver, I'm not allowed to bid on anything. I can have nothing. How does it feel for you seeing all these amazing items getting sold and you're not allowed to bid on them?
I sell millions of good items every year.
But surely...
So it is impossible to obtain anything I would like to obtain. So it would be a disaster for my mind. I would have psychological problems.
Right.
Because it's impossible. I am a minimalist too. I don't buy a lot of things, and it's something very quiet, tranquil for me not to be allowed to buy in my own auctions. Because it's good for my health.
Otherwise, you would just be bidding on every single piece, right?
Yes, maybe. It would be a disaster.
So tell me, during the big auction that we filmed at a few months ago, there was one item in particular. You predicted which would be the biggest seller. It was the elephant, remember?
Yes.
I wonder if there are other, and maybe tell me a little bit about that elephant first.
Yes.
What there was a huge interest in it from around the world? Or?
Yes, from all around the world. It has been bought by an American.
Really?
Yes, from New York.
Maybe they're listening right now.
Yeah, maybe.
What was it exactly? What was the story behind it?
It was an antique shop sign of a shop that built how do you say a billiard? A billard?
A
billiard.
Pool, snooker, yeah.
Pardon?
Pool or billiards?
A
or
billiard,
snooker,
yes. It was a billiard merchant, and he was settled down on the Bastille Square in Paris, and
Just down the road from here?
Yes, just down the road. And Napoleon III wanted to build an enormous fountain at the beginning of the 19th century on this square. And you know that the Bastille Square has been created after the demolition, the destruction of the Bastille jail during the French Revolution. And Napoleon wanted to build a very big monument on this square, and he has chosen the model of an elephant. And it was supposed to become a fountain. So he before to have an exact impression of what it could be, he built a model of it in plaster, and this model survived during 40 years on the square, under the rain, under the wind, under the snow.
Right.
It was very solid. And you know that in Les Misérables by Victor Hugo, Gavroche sleeps in the elephant. This is where he is hidden.
Right.
And Victor Hugo has made a story about that. You know, so a shop has been called à l'éléphant. It means at the elephant.
Right.
And we have sold the shop sign of the elephant.
So the shop had is that shop still exist today?
No.
Okay, so there was a shop from Napoleon. No, the elephant was from Napoleon's time, and that existed in the Bastille,
Yes.
a big elephant. And this was a model of that elephant.
Yes.
Outside an antique. Okay,
Yeah.
wow, that's pretty cool. How big was the elephant? The big one.
It was enormous because it was separated in apartments. You know, it was for receptions inside. There were stairs like in the Statue of Liberty. You know.
What? So people went into an elephant in the Bastille?
Yes.
When was this? How long ago?
It was the beginning of the 19th century, but they couldn't go inside when it was a model. It was supposed to build to allow people to enter in it. But in the model, it was impossible. It was not possible because there was no stairs.
Yeah.
But it was the magic of it, you know. It would have been a very nice monument of Paris. It was a very creative monument.
Yeah.
A very creative monument that we could have made instead of this column, which is very classical, and it's something I don't like.
You're talking
you
about
understand me?
The column
because
in the Bastille.
The column at the Bastille is an old monument, but I don't like it. It's a very classical monument. In every cities in Europe, you have columns like that. You know? So I would have preferred an elephant. You understand me more now?
I'm getting to know you, Christophe, over this very chocolatey hot chocolate.
This column is not a contemporary monument of the period.
Yeah.
It's an old-fashioned monument, quite bad taste.
Yeah, and it seems to me they're renovating the whole square down there at Bastille at the moment.
Yes,
as well.
yes.
Maybe they're rebuilding an elephant.
I would like.
Yeah.
But I'm a bit sorry of new street lamps that are going to be put on the square, and benches, and I've seen all the photographs.
Oh really? Not a fan? No. So
no.
tell me, what?
It's very classic. It's very old fashion. It has no interest. It's banal.
I've got two more questions for you, and then we'll finish up. Okay. Yeah. One is, do you have an item? Oh, by the way, how much did the elephant sell for?
32,000 euros.
Wow. 32,000.
Yes, without the fees. So with the fees, it's maybe 36 or 37.
Goodness me.
Yeah.
Okay, so that wasn't one of my questions. My first of the two questions is there another item that over the past 10 years has left an impression in your memory for some reason? One particular...
That I've sold?
Yeah.
I've sold a meteorite.
You've sold a meteorite?
Yes, a Gibeon meteorite for 160,000 euros.
160,000 euros?
160,000 euros.
Where did it land, the meteorite? Did it hit Paris or...?
No. There is a meteorite called Paris. It exists.
Really?
Yes. And I'm going to sell a piece of it in next October.
And so this is the meteorite that's hit the Earth already, and it's called Paris.
Yes, I'm going to tell you why it's called Paris. It's a very nice story.
Tell me.
For people who listen to you. You want me to tell you this story before, or to tell you about the Egyptian meteorite?
You surprise me, whatever you want.
The meteorite called Paris is a very funny story. You know, a man has bought in Drouot one day a lot of minerals, and he has abandoned them in his house. It was in Nantes, in a French city. He has abandoned them in his garage during many years. And one day he opened the box where he put them, and he was quite surprised by the shape of one of the minerals. So he asked the Museum of Natural History in Nantes to tell him about what they could know on this mineral, and they told him it's a meteorite. You have to ask the museum in Paris. And he asked the museum in Paris, and they have decided to classify this meteorite because it's a very rare one that fall on the earth many years ago, and they have decided to ask them to the Commission of Classification of Meteorites in the world to call it Paris, but it never fall in Paris. You know, generally you give the name of where the place.
Maybe it fell in Paris, Texas.
Maybe in Paris, Texas. Yeah. Maybe.
And that's a pretty cool story. But what was the other item that you sold for?
It's a meteorite because one day I went to make an inventory of things after the death of a man who collected meteorites. It was in the 13th district. We were talking about the 13th district. And he had an amazing collections, absolutely amazing. And his family has asked me to sell the collection. And it was the first time in the history of auctions in the world that a collection of meteorites was proposed to auction after the death of the collector. Because generally collectors of meteorites do not sell their collections. They're very attached to them. And we have made also during this sale world records all the time. It was a fantastic sale. It was a dream sale.
Wow, that's cool.
Yes.
Okay, we've got to wind up with our last question now. As much as I would love to keep talking about extraterrestrial auctioneering items, but I want to ask you, because like I said, you love Paris, and it's a question I ask all my guests. Okay, if for some reason you have to leave Paris, you have one day left in Paris, but for some reason you have to spend the whole day in one arrondissement, one district, which district would you choose and why?
It's very difficult to answer. I know Paris from. I like Paris from every corner.
Well, I can't accept that answer.
Yes.
No.
I don't know. Maybe my district. I love my district.
Which is that?
The 4th.
Okay.
Yes, and that's the middle of Paris. It's where the heart of Paris beats. Mm-hmm. You know, how can I describe my district? It's very hard because I never did that.
You never described your district?
No, I
Now's
never
the perfect
described
opportunity.
It's a perfect opportunity. Well, I like it. It's people are very kind. You know, they are less nervous than in the rest of the city. They are more quiet, and they talk to each other. There is a village life. Mostly, I live in the part of the 4th near the Seine River. You know.
Okay. Yeah.
And there is a village life. People talk to each other.
Well, there's literally there's Village Saint Paul there.
Yes.
So
this is at the end of my street.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would you do on your last day? Walk around, go to cafes. What would you do on your very last day in the 4th?
In my very last day, you mean?
Yeah,
when I'll be very old.
You're going to be no.
What do
it's
you mean?
Tomorrow. They're going to send you away from Paris. How will you spend one day in the 4th arrondissement?
Walking. Just walking. The eyes in the sky and on the walls, on the roofs, on the windows.
I like that idea. Okay, well, thank you for spending half an hour with me in a Paris cafe, Christophe.
You're welcome.
And maybe I'll see you in the auction house again soon.
When you want. You're welcome.
there you have it. Once again, for Patreon members of the Eiffel Tower, I'll reshare the old video that I did with Christophe walking around his fantastic room full of antiques. If you're not a member already, please sign up and support the show. If you're already a member, go and check that out, and let's have a conversation about it on the Patreon page. Merci beaucoup for listening, and I'll be back again next week with another episode. Au revoir.